Welcome to the Relentless Hope podcast. It's time to kick back, relax, and just talk with my friend Samantha. Samantha, it's great to have you here today. Welcome.
Hi.
So, before we start, I'll open us with a word of prayer and then we'll get going. Before we do, I just would like to say that Samantha and I have been friends since about 2020, and that's not always a thing that happens, especially knowing so many survivors of SRA, that we get to have a friendship.
That
And
lasts
there's
longer
so
than
many.
the yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so
Sorry.
God, Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time that we can have Samantha here to share her story. And we do know that the horrors that survivors go through, as you know, God, because you see everything that happens to each of them. Um, it's it's a broken heart, and it's with a heavy heart that we even um, share any of the awful things that happened. But it's also a time for the places that were broken to shine. And I ask that you do that with Samantha, and that she would be able to show the hope to other survivors. Um, and I've had her on my podcast before, and I feel like we're kind of a pro at this. So I just thank you that she'll be able to share again today, and just give her guidance as she shares the story that I know that you'll shine through her. And I thank you that even though she emerged from what probably felt like hell, that the places in her that had the most wounding have actually turned out to be what has made her such a compassionate and loving person. And I thank you that I've gotten to experience that in real time. And so we do ask that you be with Cindy today since she's having a migraine, and help her to be with us again soon. It just isn't the same without her. And so we just thank you for what you will show, and the hope that will be given to survivors today, and be with each of them, because it's a challenge to hear stories like this. And we do ask that you would help people to know that even though Samantha might touch on some hard things, that there is hope in her story, and that we just ask that you give the assurance to other survivors that they're not alone. And we thank you and praise you and ask for you to protect the technology and protect both of us as we do this podcast, and be with all the survivors. Um, Help them to, if they get triggered, to pause and maybe watch it later. And we just thank you for this time that Samantha can share her story. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
So Samantha lives in Arizona, and she is quite the adventurer. She loves to do camping and hiking, and she does a lot of things. And I always love getting pictures from you, Samantha, that just kind of show me what you've been doing. And so I thank you that I know so much about you already, but I want you to be the one to share whatever you want to share. Like, do you want to start with current day stuff? What do you love to do other than camping and hiking and going on adventures?
Well, yeah, it is kind of yeah, we've been friends for quite a while. You know a lot about my life. Um, let's see. Yeah, I do love to go camping. In my old days, I was all like, yeah, I gotta be super tough about everything, and like I used to camp out in like sub-zero temperatures without a tent. I mean, not all the time, but I did it every now and then. Like my backyard. I'm like, oh, let's do this. And now I'm like, if it's dropping below 45, I don't want to do this. That's part of why I moved out to Arizona. I love the heat. I love the sunshine. There's a component of me being like, I'm done having to be tough, and I kind of want to just have sunshine all the time. Um, that said, there's still, I mean, I'm in the southern Arizona, and the temperatures hit, triple digits for like 4 to 6 months of the year. So I haven't fully left that whole like intense thing behind. But yeah, I do. I love camping. I have a son, and he and I we like to explore food. Food's another big joy that we have that we share together is trying new foods and stuff like that. Now that I'm a mom, I'm really enjoying learning how to cook and rather than just going somewhere else to have food made for me.
Yeah, that's
Um,
another thing. You
yeah,
are a holistic nutritionist, right? You
yeah,
just got you finished up your schooling last year, right?
yeah. I finished a program for holistic nutrition consulting, and so I'm trying to get that private practice off the ground. It's been a little weird, between the economy and then the holidays and stuff like that. So, and then also being like a full-time mom, so that also factors into how quickly things get done. Um, but yeah, and
Right.
before I moved out here to Tucson, I used to live in Boston area, and then I moved out here to Tucson, Southern Arizona, and I was a massage therapist back there, and so yeah, we'll see. We'll see how things roll out in terms of getting back in the workforce. I've been out for a while as a mom, but yeah,
So other than healing and things that you do current day, do you have any hobbies or pursuits or passions that you've been able to do now that you've had all this healing that you hard work, of course, gotten to a place where you can enjoy life too?
let's see. Things that have unlocked since I've got healing. That's interesting. I think the biggest thing that getting more healing has unlocked has been like my emotional desktop space, to use like a computer term, you got your desktop space. And I feel like I have so much more bandwidth for life in general. Um, that's like I can handle the bulk of the highs and lows with being a mom, along with, okay, making lunches and doing the dishes, cleaning the house, and planning the play dates and all that stuff. All this daily life stuff seems to be just like a fun rhythm to be in as opposed to like, oh my gosh, I gotta pull everything together just to get my socks on. So, it feels it's less like, oh, now that I'm healed I can do that particular thing. It's like all these things are opened up to me, so now it's like I can do more exploring, and I have such a wide range of interests that it's really nice to have like this bandwidth of like, ooh, now I can just play and enjoy life. So kayaking's another thing that I've liked to do. I can be very inactive too, so I can spend hours on the couch with Netflix, and lately it's been doing little jigsaw puzzles on my phone, but in days gone by I've gotten onto pretty long streaks of crocheting. So
That's cool. It's
yeah.
nice to get to a place where you can live, and as opposed to
Yeah.
just surviving and like pulling
Yes.
up your bootstraps and you know
Yes. Yes,
and I'm
it
sure
used to
you
be
had
that.
those days.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it used to be that every day it was like, okay, all right, I'm going outside my house. I'm gonna see people, and things are gonna happen, and it's gonna make me feel really, really terrified and overwhelmed. Just, I don't know what it is gonna be, but everything's gonna do that.
Did
And
you
now
ever have
it's,
times where you couldn't even leave the house?
oh, it definitely was, it looked like I was an introvert. We'll put it that way. It looked like I needed so much alone time just to get enough juice to do outside my house activities. And so it was like for several years as a massage therapist, I ran my own practice, and it was really nice having my own practice. I wasn't very busy, and that wasn't because I wasn't a good therapist. A lot of people loved my work, but I just couldn't promote myself. I'm like, you know what? The ebbs and flows of clients coming in just worked with when I needed the break. And I'd have whole weeks where it'd be like a Monday morning, and I'd start getting all these calls and emails being like, I gotta cancel, I gotta cancel, I gotta cancel. And I'd have like a full week's worth of clients cancel in 5 hours. And I'm like, well, I guess this is a week where I just need to deal with stuff inside, and I needed those rests, and then other weeks and I would get to process through stuff and have a little bit more energy, and then I could handle the bigger workload. So it was a very bizarre. It wasn't like, oh, looking at this at your life as a business owner, this is what you need to do to make this business work. It's like, I can't fit that mold. Nope. I gotta feel the ebbs and flows of when clients are coming in. I take the money and take the time, and it helps me to like get away from help me to get away from my stuff, because you get sucked into your own world, and you're like, too much of navel casing. So it worked as this ebb and flow kind of a thing, and I had to kind of roll with things, and that um, there's a measure of that I do still, but it's just a different path now. It's a different ebb and flow of things now as a mom. As you're on 24/7, you know.
Yeah. So how many years before we go to your childhood, how many years would you say that you've been like healing and remembering what had happened to you?
Um yeah, it's like where's the starting point of the recovery? For me, it's really been like a slow progression and evolution of things, rather than like, oh my gosh, something happened and now I need to get healing. Um, I really felt things kind of evolving very, very young, where I had this sense of like, I have to hold together, and as soon as I see an escape point, I need to take it. And like in middle school, high school, I could feel that internally of being like, shut your mouth and wait for the right time to leave. And then when I was in college, I went to college in in a town that was close to where my home was. But halfway through college, my parents moved. And after they moved and left the state, I started to kind of collapse a little bit. It was like, boom, they're gone. Now I can kind of start to let some stuff come up. And the first thing that came up, I'm 44 now, so this is back in like early 2000s, when this collapse first. It's not really a collapse. This was like delayering.
I like that term, delayering.
Yeah, this first peel that first outermost layer of the onion, that first scrape off the toppings of the parfait kind of happened. And it was anger that came up. And I realized, oh my gosh, everything around me makes me angry at my dad. And so that was kind of like boiling, boiling, boiling. It came to this point where by the time I was graduating college, I was like, I have so much baggage against my dad. As soon as I put my pencil down at the end of my last final exam for college, I was like, now all I need to do is deal with my daddy issues. And so that kind of was like the first point where I was really starting to work on things. But again, like things were building up to and preparing me for like, okay, here's the first exit where they're gone and I can start to unmask some stuff. And then the next exit was, college is over. I don't have to focus on this, because I went to a really academically rigorous college. And So it was like everything was about your grade and you're gonna die if you don't do so awesome with this because everyone's better than you. And I was like, I don't care, but I want to do well. So ugh. Anyway, after college, it was like, I don't have to deal with any of that stuff because it doesn't matter. All like, I just need to focus on getting my insides okay. And I also had a very strong sense early on around that time, like within the first year, that if I don't deal with my stuff, I will be an abusive girlfriend, spouse, and an abusive parent. And I had that, like, being the thought of being an abuser was horrifying to me. And so I was like, do not pass go, do not collect $200. This is your top project.
Mhm.
And as a result, even though like I have a lot of gifts and abilities, it's like, oh, you could be making six figures, but it's like this is higher priority. So I don't really have a lot of money. And I
Yeah,
have a very weird resume.
that's interesting to hear about your journey because I don't think we ever talked about that, Samantha. Like, as far as like how anger was like one of your first, emotions that came up,
Yep.
and how you knew if you don't deal with this,
Yeah.
I'm going to maybe be an abuser or,
Yeah.
have those tendencies. You must have
Yeah.
felt that I got to deal
I
with this.
yeah, I had this sense of like, oh my gosh, I am toxically angry. Every time somebody talked to me about something, it was like I started bitching and moaning about my dad. I'm like, dude, everything goes back to this anger around my father. Like, what the hell? Like, this is ridiculous.
Maybe I need to take a look at this.
Maybe I should deal with this. And then actually, between my junior and senior year, I did an internship program with a Christian organization in Venezuela. And as part of that internship program, I had to meet with one of the leaders weekly as kind of a mentor connecting, overseeing disciple kind of thing. And I was sharing with her some stuff, and she told me point blank, she's like, you need to leave the situation with your dad. And I'm like, but financial support. She's like, no, you need to leave. Also, you need to forgive your dad. I want you, she gave me homework. She said, go home and write down everything that you're angry with your dad about. And I want you to forgive him. And I was just like, oh, this is going to take forever. And at that point, like, I didn't even know half of what I didn't like. It was just, I just knew I was
Mhm.
angry. But
Yeah.
I also knew she was right. So I started doing that. I was like my intro to this. And then the next layer after college, my older sister and my older brother, I'm number three of five kids. And so my two older siblings had gotten into looking at the superficial layer of junk in our family and gotten connected with Elijah House Ministries. And they do I think they release some really important tools to Christians. I think everybody who wants to follow Jesus should get these tools. Um, just some basic spiritual emotional hygiene tools um, that help to process through the superficial layers. And I think about a year, there was a book that Elijah House, one of the co-founders, wrote called Healing Victims of Sexual Abuse. And I'm flipping through that book one day, and again, I'm like 20, 21, 22 years old, not couldn't be more than that. Flipping through that book, and there's a chapter that says, oh, signs and symptoms of childhood sexual abuse. And I'm like, oh, check, 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 check. Wow. Huh. And then the next chapter was profile of an abuser. And I'm like, hey, this is the best description of my dad I've ever seen. And so
So
I'm
here
like,
you're checking off all
yeah.
those
So I'm
signs
like,
and
huh,
symptoms, and then, hmm.
huh. And so as on the wake of that, I was there was one particular night I was living in one part of like a rural town in Massachusetts. It was about 45 minutes outside of Boston. And I was attending two different churches. One was like a small rural charismatic spirit-filled church that believed in the gifts and prophecy and dream interpretation, that kind of stuff. And the other one was a Chinese Evangelical church. It was a large, very left brain church that had two large congregations. One was completely Chinese speaking and one was English speaking. Those were all the kids of the Chinese speaking church. And so I was driving in the dark. It was raining from where I was living in the rural Mass to where the larger church was. And on the way, I was driving. It was like 4 or 5 minute drive, and I started thinking. I was like, you know what? Just a shotgun prayer. I said, God, if I have been sexually abused, I choose to forgive whoever sexually abused me. It was just like a shotgun prayer. I didn't know. I hadn't had any memories come up. But as soon as I said those words out loud to myself in the car, this huge well of pain came up and just started bawling and bawling and bawling. I was hysterically crying while I'm driving down the road in the dark, in the rain.
While you're driving.
Yeah, and I was like, I guess that actually happened. So I just kind of let that, it was like confirmation to me that that had actually happened. And so that was kind of like the first intro to recovering memories. And I didn't actually recover any memories. I was recovering the emotions to a memory that I was kind of reverse engineering.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it wasn't until a few that kind of gave me something to work with. And it wasn't until a few years later that there was a situation that like hit me in the face, and then I actually did have something of a collapse. And I realized, oh my gosh, there's a lot more that I have to look at, and I need serious help, and I have never seen the kind of help that I need. I knew that I needed help that I had never seen before, and the people around me were just incapable. And shortly after
Was it,
that, go ahead, ask.
I was just going to say, was it Elijah House Ministries that told you to forgive your dad in the first place?
That was
Was
a
it
big
them?
crux of them. Yeah, that was a big crux of their thing, is forgiveness, but also repenting of bitter root judgments is what they call them, where you can like have a negative experience and then bitterly judge something or someone, including yourself, and hold on to that, and it'll grow, and you'll end up reaping what you sow when you sow the seed of bitterness. And so things will keep coming back to you because you are so bitter about it. So if you like, your dad always did blah blah blah, and then you're like, oh, I hate blah blah blah, and so there's this like bitterness that sits in your heart, and so as a result, you keep on getting the blah 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 come at you and
Mhm.
irritating you. And so basically, it was like a tool to realize, oh, I'm being triggered, and there's a way to escape this kind of a trigger. So
That's
they
interesting
have a
to
whole bunch
hear.
of other, yeah, they have a whole bunch of other tools that are kind of in that arena. And then as I started dealing with dissociation and other parts, I had to kind of upgrade and adapt those to apply to a whole bigger thing going on with regards to trauma-based mind control and dissociation and whatnot, because that doesn't work the way it's presented. It works awesome
Yeah,
for singletons, and everybody I think should get these tools, but you have to kind of really
exactly.
recognize those things to apply it to a dissociative system and to
That's so true.
yeah.
Because with having different parts, it's like you don't just have one person that's forgiving. It's like, like one whole person. You're having all these different parts that, have
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
memories
And
and
there are ways to adapt that. Like one of the tools that I use to adapt that is I say, on behalf of myself over here, I choose to forgive so and so. Or on behalf of myself here, I repent of such and such. And so there's an element of, as I'm doing this, I acknowledge that I'm separate from this other part of me, but also acknowledging and taking a responsibility for all of me at the same time. So I've had to adapt the language to apply.
Sounds like they have some really good tools, though, that you have put in your toolbox to help you adapt it according
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
your
Yeah, for
needs.
sure. And that definitely opened the door to like the idea of repressed memories. That's kind of how they called it. It was like, oh, things can happen to you that you don't remember. And it's like, oh, okay. Which is, that helped me to kind of get me ready for there are things that I don't know about that could be in play.
Yeah. So before you talk more about the adult remembering, would you want to share anything about what your early childhood was like so the viewers can get an idea of, did you know anything was wrong?
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Yeah, the general tone of the daytime household was I was in a military family, and so a lot of the programming was military based, um and took place with other military kids, the other Department of Defense dependent kids on the Air Force bases. um and we moved around a ton. Right now I'm at like my 30th address in my life in 44 years, something like that.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've been at this address for 7 years. It's like, oh, it's the longest I've been in one
Yeah.
place. My average turnover was like a year and a half. So
Hey,
there's a
that's an
lot of,
accomplishment.
yeah, right. I'm staying here. I need to move though, because my apartment's kind of tiny, and like me and my kid were like, get off of me. But it's also really nice. I don't want to have to move again. My
Yeah,
next house
for
needs to be
sure.
with my husband in a really nice ranch. Like that's it. No one, no other intermittent. Not probably not going to happen, but So anyway, military household, 5 kids. Well, the first four of us were from my dad's first marriage, and that my mom died when I was 8, and we were told that it was like a medical mishap, that she just died, had an allergic reaction to a blah 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 medication and whatever. That was the cover story. And I uncovered that it was a satanic ritual years later. As an adult, I recovered that. But
I'm so sorry. That had to
it,
be so
oh,
hard to lose your mom at the age of 8.
yeah, when you're dissociated, that helps a lot, but obviously it sucks.
Mm.
But it's also a common thing for, I know that it's a common thing for them to cut out, to get that attachment tear, and it's been very healing to remember that. Um, and you guys trying to go back to this original question, daily life. Before my mom died, there was kind of two phases to my childhood. There was with my birth mom, my natural mother. My dad was very dominant and militaristic, um, and lots of moving around. Um, and my after my mom died, my dad remarried very quickly, and that was cult arranged. And she was a programmer, so she was like installed to continue the work that was started with us. um there was, in daily life, it was, um there was a Christian overlay of things. So I learned about the gospel of Jesus from both my parents, both my dad and my mom, and they explain the gospel in very clear, accurate ways, though all this other stuff was going on. So there was, but that was a big thing in the household, is like we want to follow Jesus. um though my dad was kind of, he's got to qualify for some sort of like OCD, paranoia kind of stuff. at least superficially. Obviously, he's got some serious issues to do what's been done to us and allow what happened to us. Um,
Yeah.
but just trying to get the daily life sort of thing. He'd be OCD on certain things, um like he'd have us do projects around the house, like home remodeling kinds of things and painting, but he would be really disorganized with his time. And so he wouldn't so when we'd be prepping our house to move or to sell, he'd have us do all this stuff to like paint or whatever, but he wouldn't start the project in time for when our deadline was. And so we'd end up doing all-nighters painting on like a school night or whatever. And then he wouldn't give us the right tools or the right supplies. And so there's a lot of like chaos and disorganization on a daily level. Um, a lot of distant unemotional relationship with my dad. Like I wanted to spend time with him. I reach out every now and then to say, I want to spend time with you. He's like, yeah, no, it's not going to happen. And I don't care if you hate me and blah, blah, blah. I was very like, nope, we will have a very official relationship. And it was so odd. As there's one time I remember when I was a teenager, he came over to hug me and I was like, ew, get off of me. He was like, what? He was so offended. I'm like, seriously? Come on, man. All this time you've been like, no, we're not going to be affectionate. And then you are, and I get grossed out because I'm a teenage girl and you've never done this my whole life, as far as my brain knows, my conscious self
Right.
knows. And it's just weird. Um, and the birth order, it was older sister and then older brother, 18 months apart, and then 5 years between me and my older brother. And then me and my younger brother were 18 months apart. So it was girl, boy, and then girl. My younger sister, a half sister, came along when I was around 11 after my dad remarried. Um, but I was sandwiched between two brothers, and I always felt a strong disconnect from sisters and from female. Like they definitely pushed a lot of the transgender thing on me. They didn't quite put it in that language. It was a lot of like that. It was women suck, so you want to be a man because that's a better way to go. And so a lot of my dissociative system was very masculine. And it took me a long time. Like I got triggered crazy when I was in my mid 20s. I got triggered crazy when some guy told me, you're a sweet little girl. I almost like some murderous part came out and wanted, like, literally wanted to kill this guy for saying I was a sweet little girl. It's like, oh,
Like
geez.
identify
Ooh.
like identifying more as a male gender, sounds
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, very much did so.
Like
And it's been a long
probably a
road
half
to undo that.
yeah, probably a have to for survival.
Yeah, there was a have to, but also there was a have to, but also the way it was presented was like, you really don't want to be a female because that's just the shitty way to go. Like, and they used my older sister. Like, I could see they definitely used a siblings to like keep each other programmed. And so it's like, you see what's going on over here, don't you? You don't want to be like that, right? And so I was like, yeah, no, I don't want to be
Okay.
like that. And so just shoveling me in this other direction. Like my older sister, they very much sexualized her. But me, they said, look at that. You don't want to be like that. And then they weaponized me. And so they did a lot of like that ground layer of the super soldier programming got put in there of wanting to weaponize me and whatnot. And then they used that to link me with my older brother, and we had to do ops together and stuff like that. And it's like I'm starting to like get to the next layer of that. And the past couple of weeks have been like, it's coming up.
Yeah, seems like that
um,
harder stuff comes later.
yeah, you'd have to build your resilience, and there's a good thing for that. It's like each layer you gain some tools and have to kind of master some tools in terms of being able to emotionally regulate yourself being able to recognize internal triggers and internal systems and responses, like all this stuff, you like build up these tools to help you get to be able to look at the deeper stuff. So
Yeah.
it's, yeah.
What was it
Did that
like
answer
for
your question?
you? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. You said a lot about things I know that you know now, but you
Yeah.
probably didn't connect the dots
Yeah.
then. What was it like for you, Samantha, with like your mom passing away and then your dad remarrying so quickly, having a stepmom? Um,
Well, depends on who you ask. There's so many layers to all this. I mean, when I experienced it, I very much had to pull together, you know. My conscious awareness was, oh, it's horrible losing my mom, but I want to be a good Christian and let God take her to heaven, that kind of a thing. But going through the layers, there have been so many different layers of it. Like I've since learned that it was a ritual abuse, like she was murdered and demon worship, and B, that they had every one of the family members partake in her death in various ways, and I was picked to deal a death blow to her. And they spent the whole previous year, I'm 7 years old, and they spent years having me in underground, bleh, training me to be capable of delivering a fatal blow to my mom, who was like the only one I really could connect to and trust. So like that's its own thing. Um,
yeah.
and then it's, yeah. I mean, when that memory first came back, it was interesting that how that memory came back. It actually came back as like a double memory, where I was in a season where I was switching a lot and I had tons of parts, especially littles, coming forward all the time. And I was like not able to work. By the grace of God, I had people who took me into their home and they were just taking care of me. And one day these littles were coloring and they were started drawing this stone slab in a dark room and gross evil guy. And as she's coloring, she's saying, Mommy, 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 Mommy. And I heard this, and it was actually two different human sacrifices coming up at the same time. Like I knew that there was one where um that involved there one that involved somebody else. And then I realized, holy crap, that's my mom too. Like those are two different scenarios. And as soon as I started remembering that, I kind of went back in the memory, and um, I had my hand up about to strike, and I immediately saw the Lord Jesus stop my hand and said, "You did not do this." He said, "You did not do this." Um, and he's intervened and helped, done a ton to help process through, and well, he's done all the work, all the heavy lifting. Like he's brought me through so much, but there have been, it's just a different ways that he interacts with things, or helps me process through stuff and brings memories back and whatnot. Um, and
Thank you
then,
for sharing that. That
yeah,
that actually is very helpful because a lot of times when we are trained to be, people that are going to do human sacrifice or having to end somebody's life, as a child, we're made to believe that we were the ones that did that. And that is wonderful that Jesus was able to let you know that you weren't the one. And I had that
yeah,
happen in my own experience, and so many other survivors have too. And sometimes they don't get to the place like you where they
they can
are,
hear the Lord. interact with it.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
they just believe that they did it.
Yeah.
And yes, we do end up having to do that, but a lot of times it's not what we think it is. They make us believe that we did, and like
Yeah.
putting our hand on a knife and forcing
Yes.
something,
Yes.
or
Yes. And it wasn't, as I recovered more memories after that, like it's the picture became clearer. Um,
Mhm.
when I was in my mid 20s, I had that collapse, and I had a vague awareness of sexual abuse in the family, but I had no clue how much. And then I had this collapse, and I was like, holy crap, my emotions are way up here. And what I know about myself is this big. Like these emotions don't match up. There's got to be more that I don't know about. And next thing I know, I'm in this really dysfunctional space. Like I was a basket case. I like didn't eat or do anything for 3 months. I lost a ton of weight because I was just like in this Malaysia, like so overwhelmed with emotions. And during that, because of this there was a situation that triggered my entire collapse. My whole system was like, oh, yep, we're not doing daily life the way we normally do. This is a serious danger. So we just collapsed everything. I mean, like shut out the whole world overnight. I lost all my friends because I couldn't come out and live daily life. Because all these protector parts are like, yeah, stay out, world. And I was in this space where I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel crazy. I knew I wasn't, but I felt very crazy. And so I got this book. I bought this book called 50 Signs of Mental Illness.
my gosh.
Yeah. And
Well,
I
did
went
it help you to know that you weren't crazy?
no, actually, it didn't, because here's what the book said. I'm going through this, like, oh, depression, anxiety, this thing, that thing. I'm like, oh, yeah, that fits. I have that. I have that. I have that. But this doesn't, it's not the full picture. Then there's this little tiny section on multiple personality disorder. That's what the book called it. And it said, the little blurb under it was like, oh, people think this is real, but it's not. And I read that. I'm like, you're full of shit. I read that. I'm like, this author doesn't know shit. And
You knew.
I'm like, yeah, you're wrong about that. You're just wrong. And this is before I acknowledged it to myself. And I realized I had tons of dreams. Dreams are like a major way that I learn about what's going on internally. A major way of how I learn and interact with my parts is through dreams. And then after waking up with dreams, I have a real close access to them in the middle of the night. And so a lot of my work happens in the middle of the night, talking to parts and whatnot. But I was having before I read that little BS snippet in that book, I had been having these dreams where I was multiple people in the dreams. I'm like, that's me over there. And that's me over there too. I'm like, what the heck? And I was, thinking, oh, it's symbolic, it's symbolic. And then I was like, just for fun, just for shits and giggles, I am going to say that this is real. Say that those are actually other me's. And as
Mhm.
soon as I made that stepped into that premise of things, it was like everything started opening up and making sense. And I was like, holy cow, like I can re-enter my dreams. So when I have a dream, I can wake up and I can still see it in my mind's eye, and I can kind of go back into it and interact with the parts, or interact with the dream elements, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's just it's metaphysical, spiritual ability that humans have that Western thinkers don't talk about a ton. But so I went back into this one particular dream, and in the dream I saw this one part who was like really rebellious and wearing all black and like, I'm gonna break the law. And I'm like, Miss Christian woman over here having this dream, looking at this rebellious part, being like, that's not me. So when I went, I'm like, okay, just for fun, maybe this is another me. Like, another identity, another personality. So I went back in the dream, and as soon as I started to connect with that part, oh, I could feel everything that she felt. And I could feel this physiological change come over me. All my
Wow.
whole body changed. Like I could feel this part. And it's freaked the crap out of me. I ran into the bathroom and looked in the mirror and like disconnected and watched the shift as I like passed out. I was like, oh
Oh
geez,
my
that's real.
gosh.
I'm like, this is real. Holy cow. And at that point, it was like nobody could tell me anything different. Like I've never been clinically diagnosed. Nobody could tell me that I'm not. Nobody could tell me that I am. It's like, yeah, I know. Like
Yeah,
you
you
can think
already
what you
knew.
want. Like I know it's true. But the bigger point, that the biggest takeaway from that was realizing that once I could acknowledge that that other part was a different me and I could connect with her, I was able to help her. And
Yeah.
I realized that like God himself honors these splits. Like my will separate from her will, he honors the separation of these wills. And that to me was like the most critical piece to realize, is that, oh, if God honors this, then I should honor it too. And also realize like I need to come alongside these other wills and help, and not just say, oh, my will, we're going to do this. Like there were some things that just kind of clicked as soon as I realized that. Um, and then about 6 months
That's a
later,
huge,
yeah, it was
huge
huge.
realization.
It was huge. And I kind of was like, oh, I was like a basket case for a while because of that. That's part of why that for 3 months I didn't eat anything, because I'm like, what the heck is going on? And I was just like trying to get to know who the heck is inside, like who's my roster, like
Wow, it sounds like the Lord was really helping you to, like give yourself acceptance and like where you already had a knowing of, like there's multiple me's.
yeah,
And I love how you get a lot of your connecting with your parts and with memories through your dreams. That's one of the ways the Lord has spoken to you for years.
yeah.
When you were a child, did you have dreams, or was that more like later on?
Yes, yes, actually, very much so. And this actually, once I got connected with the charismatic church that I mentioned when uh, earlier, I was like, oh, God can speak to us through dreams. I was like, oh, duh, that makes sense. One of my earliest dream, get this, my earliest dream, I was like, oh, everything's falling together once I realized this. I'm like, ah ha ha. My earliest dream, I was 5 years old, 4 years old. And in the dream, I was married to Pee Wee Herman. Yep. And the cops came and arrested Pee Wee Herman, and they took him away. And I was like, no, that's my boyfriend. That's my husband. I
Had
was like,
you had you heard about him?
oh, and we weren't allowed to watch Pee Wee Herman. I mean, I don't know
Oh,
why not,
okay.
because daytime was very like, no, we're going to live in this. It was kind of a fundamentalist sort of vibe of the flavor of Christianity that we had. I mean, in hindsight, I can see that my dad he wanted out, but he did not have the tools or capacity to get out. And I think the same was true for the same was true for my mom for sure. Um, and so looking back, like I can see that my dad, even though he definitely opened the door for some terrible, terrible things to happen, and he perpetrated on us, he definitely was not innocent. Um, but he definitely gave me, I can think of two very critical tools that he gave me that have been essential for me to get out. And one was the true gospel of Jesus. It's about a genuine relationship with Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. It's not about just saying a prayer and then everything's okay. And it gave me a really good plumb line of like, you as a personal relationship with Jesus, you get to read the Bible yourself and figure it out. You don't have to take anybody else's word for it. Every time anyone you hear teaching about the Bible, you take it back yourself, and with your relationship with Jesus, you figure it out, the truth. Don't just swallow what people tell you. And then so the second one was, he would sit down with us, and when we watched movies and stuff, and he did this really, it's really annoying to teenagers, but it's super critical. And I do it with my son now. He's like 6 years old, and he's like, okay, mom, can we just watch the movie already? He's already like sick of me. But I still try to get in because this is critical. He would sit down and he would say, look at how they are portraying this evil thing as though it's funny. That causes you to actually receive it and think it's okay. So he would give us tools to watch movies critically. I mean, movies was kind of the medium of saying, look, the movies wants to say that this is the message, but here's the deeper underlying message of this that's coming across here. So he was teaching us how to see programming and to not be caught up
So
with the
your dad
superficial one.
was.
So that, yeah, I got that from my dad,
Wow.
even though he was like sexually abusing us and accusing us of being Satanists for having sex with each other and not stopping my brothers from having sex with me. It's like not stopping anybody else, just like blaming. It was bad. So there's a lot of bad stuff there going on, but those two major tools I've been critical, which
Do
comes
you
back
think your
to,
dad?
yeah, an important facet of my upbringing in childhood. Like there was a lot of sex, a whole lot. Like it was like in hindsight, like having recovered stuff, realizing like all the siblings, like everybody with everybody in the house all the time. It was just, and at one point when I was a teenager, my I don't know, I got pregnant. Who knows who the real father was? But my stepmom, who's military programmer, she convinced my older brother that it was his, and she told him that dad's going to kill you if he finds out that you got your sister pregnant. And so she led him through, she guided him through how to give me an abortion at home, because he was terrified of our dad finding out that I got pregnant. And then, and other layers of these things, I learned that um I wasn't allowed to have romantic relationships with anybody. Like that was heavily put into me. I'm not allowed. Like that kind of love, that's not for you. Your mission is ops. Like that's it. Like nobody wants you for a relationship. All they have is going and doing these missions for us. But at the same time, in the home, because that got flipped on its head, because uh in the cult realm, in the demon worship realm of things, the demon worship layer of everything that was going on, I was actually the family cult prostitute that was meant to keep everybody tied to a specific, that queen of heaven, cosmic entity. And so I was kept pure for that purpose. Like how do you even call that pure? I wasn't allowed to have relationships,
Right.
so that way I could be that cult prostitute to keep everybody tied to this other thing in the family.
Can you can you
That makes
explain
sense.
that a little bit more? With what you said about, I know it's like
It's so weird. Yeah, there's so many different layers. They're just like, what the? This is just a big mash of. Ugh.
like how that tied you to having to do lead, like direct you or other people towards, what was it you said?
The queen of heaven. It's a
The Queen of
cosmic
Heaven.
demonic entity. I don't like
Oh,
it.
okay.
It's pretty gross.
No.
So yeah, basically basically my role in the family was that if you had sex with me, then then you'd get access to that cosmic power, right?
Oh, thank you for explaining that.
And well, that's at least that's the sell. That's the sell. You get the power because you had sex with me and I'm tied to her, tied to this Queen of Heaven. But really, it's like Queen of Heaven keeps them in slavery by keeping me sexually pulling on them, being like, hey, do you want to have sex? It's like that was one specific part whose job it was to do that in the family.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, all these other parts are like, no, nobody ever wants to have sex with me because I gotta go do all these military ops over here. And it's just internal
What a
confusion.
conflict internally.
Yeah, yeah,
Being
yeah,
trained to be
yeah,
exploited sexually like that, and then being trained, for
yeah,
ops.
yeah. It was yeah, but the thing is like that that torment around not being allowed to have romantic relationships fueled my ability to really lean into this. It's like I've got nothing and just avoid, cut off my core self that is a female and wants to be married and go do this because there's nothing else. Does that make sense? So
Exactly.
it was pulling on that tear. In the meantime, my older sister, I recently learned that she's been maybe I shouldn't tell her story. But they did like the opposite thing with my older sister. She's
Yeah, like
recently
grooming her to be a woman,
yeah, but
but
she was like
sexualized.
forced to be in those dynamics and couldn't get out.
Yes. It's very sad
Yeah,
for all of
and
you.
so they fed our issues off of each other to like keep us going in the direction that they wanted us to go.
Yeah.
So internally I
Wow.
was hating my sister because oh my gosh, look at that whore over there because she's doing all this over there, which they were making her do. And in my mind, she bought this lie. Like that's what they told me. They could see what I was seeing. I actually recently uncovered this that the primary programmer guy, I don't have much more information on him besides the man, but he started working with me when I was young, like 3 years old, probably. And it was a lot of sexual abuse. Um, uh, then a lot of it involved my younger brother, but all everything was anything and everything was fair game. And I actually at one point I saw that man. There was a particular well, one very clear memory that I have, and I know this has happened multiple times where um my dad woke I was around 4 years old. My dad woke me up in the middle of the night and took me out to the car. And my mom was drugged. She was out in the back. And the man was there and he was in charge. And he told my dad where to go. And he said, stop the car. And then he sodomized my dad, did things to me, and then did things to my mom, made my dad do stuff to my mom, and she's out. And then they made me do stuff to my mom. And but during that, like I could see this man physically change, like shapeshift into yeah, it wasn't a werewolf, but it was like that. It was some ugly creature, some sick creature. He shapeshifted into this other creature. Like I've seen that, and that's my first memory of it that I have so far.
It has to
But
be scary.
yeah, yeah, it's not fun being
No,
abused
none
by
of
that.
this is
It's not fun to be abused by that. But those are real things. It really does
very
happen.
real.
Very real.
I
Um,
think the demonic takes over at that point.
yes, there's definitely a lot of that. But there's specific entities that they'll splice in these DNA from other these other non-human entities into human DNA. A lot of the like they do a lot of um hybridization and DNA genetic stuff to get people to be able to do that stuff. And then there are rituals that they will put people through to tap into these other powers from these other entities. It's sick. Um, but where was I going with that? There was something else I was trying to share.
Well, you were talking about
I don't
the
remember.
man, the programmer, and the
Yeah,
4-year-old that
yeah,
you shared the memories of what you were just sharing.
yeah. And the man, he was definitely in charge of a lot of stuff. Um, and he must have had access to me further down the road because there are other memories that I've had where I'm like, that's what I was going to talk about. Like he because he was a primary programmer. I actually over the years I developed this, and the way he interacted with me, there was a dual dynamic that I had with him, and I recently was able to free up a whole bunch of parts and their attachment to him in different ways that was huge freedom because that had like these hordes, there's two main groups of parts that were attached to him. Some were attached to him because of this sexual bond, this false marriage, this false love, and these other parts that hated the sex and the attachment that only bonded him on like a business level. Like we can be uh, partners in crime kind of a thing. And so it was like my parts were loyal to him from a different kind of a bond. And but the thing was is that like the two, I couldn't heal the internal conflict without healing how they were connecting to him. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So once like it's taken me years to get to a place where I have collected enough of my stories and enough of my parts together to get a big enough picture to say, oh, this is what's going on. So I kind of was able to pull everyone into the room, everyone who ever interacted with this guy. Let's pull up how it was that your dynamic was with him, and let's bring all that to the cross and put the whole picture together and dump the whole thing rather than trying to pull out one little strand at a time. It was snapping back in, if that makes any sense.
It does. I actually would when you talked about the two groups, like being connected in different ways, like the false marriage with the false attachment that they set up, and then like the ops parts having the attachment more like as a business partner in crime kind of
Yeah,
a sense.
like military buddies. Yeah, we're gonna go out to war together, and we've got this bond of yeah. I've got your back.
I
You got my back.
understand
I
it.
trust you implicitly. My life is in your hands, and yeah, it's just a
Mhm.
different thing.
Yeah, I had similar false marriage
Oh,
attachment,
so many
the
false
stuff that
marriages.
they yeah. And then you are connected because for survival you have to connect to someone when
Yeah,
you're being abused.
yeah,
And so yeah, thank you for explaining that because a lot of times survivors don't get to that level of uh what actually
yeah,
happened
yeah. This
and
is
for you.
definitely deeper down.
Mhm. Very hardcore stuff, that thankfully you have freedom from it then after,
Yeah,
you know, remembering and connecting with it, and then I like how you gave it all to the Lord and let him sort it out. So when you
yeah,
were
yeah.
with the 2 different churches that you went to,
Hmm.
you mentioned, like, the Charismatic and then, like, Chinese Evangelical. Were either of those churches or both of them connected to the cult?
You know what?
Or
Those two
involved in
churches,
ritual abuse?
I haven't recovered anything that has any inkling of it being a bad experience for anybody inside. Those were
That's good.
positive experiences. Not that those churches were perfect, you know. Like the if the Chinese Evangelical church was, the pastor was like very clear, like, oh, demons don't really exist. That's a bunch of mumbo jumbo. I'm like, you're full of it. You were so wrong. But it didn't phase me. It didn't feel like, I don't know, maybe just God protected me. I think, well, I first accepted Jesus when I was 5. And being in the home I was in, um, God must have helped me to develop a particular part that could receive truth and only the truth and nothing but the truth, and just hold on to it in the midst of everything else that happened, because there was a lot of other things happening that was just like, I mean, even now today, before I got onto this, I was talking to some parts and I was like, oh, can we talk to Jesus about this? And I immediately got a picture of my older brother. And I'm like, no, no, not him. Thank you for letting me know that he was set up as Jesus for you, but he was not Jesus. Because, by the way, I have had memories of being violently raped by him as a non-human entity. I've seen him transmorph and shapeshift, so it's
Oh,
like, no, that's not Jesus. So I've had this in the midst of like parts being severely confused over the years. Like, I've had this nugget of like, well, that's not true. You guys are idiots over there. Like, yeah, like that's got to be God
yeah.
in the midst
It
of all
sounds
this
like it.
confusion. So, by the grace of God, like I've definitely come across a lot of people in churches who have just not known how to deal with me. Um, it's taken me a few years to be able to say just that, as opposed to like having my own trauma response to these people who like say things and like, you idiots, blah blah blah. Lots of forgiveness needs to happen, but because the reality is like there's so like I think the bulk of Christian people are so programmed and trained to think something, and anything outside of that box is like, yeah, you're wrong and we're right, and if you don't fit inside this box you must not love Jesus. And I'm like, all right, go ahead, bye bye, have fun with that. I went to this is relatively recent, like in the past 5 years. I took a long hiatus from church, like 10, 12 years from church. I stopped going for a long time. I was like, y'all are nuts. I need my help somewhere else, and you guys can't give it to me. So okay.
It
And
can be
then
late.
yeah, exactly. And then I finally decided, I really want to connect. I need to have some other Christians in my life. And that was after I moved here and just need to get some community here in Tucson. And then so they had a prayer ministry thing, and I was like, oh, let's just check it out. I did not expect them to be equipped with anything that I needed help with, but I was just checking it out. So I went in there and I shared some of the stuff I have been going through, and I was working with a team of 3 people. Maybe it was 2 women, 1 man. I don't remember. Whatever, 3 people. And after I shared some basics of stuff like that, and then this one woman stopped and she said, "I don't believe that all of that actually happened to you." And I said, "Okay. So what do you two other have to offer to prayer?" It's like, I just couldn't care less. I'm like, believe what you want. Like, I've had to fight the denial too, but you don't have, you can walk away and live with that. You can walk
You can't
away
walk
and it's
away.
no skin off of you. It's like that's one thing that I really struggled with, was sharing things with people. I definitely was trauma dumper. I was definitely a trauma dumper. And I apologize to all those people that I trauma dumped on and they just couldn't handle it. But at the same time, there was a part of me that's like, yeah, you can walk away. I can't.
Yeah. So
So
true.
that's so nice that you can take care of yourself and walk the fuck away. I can't. This is my life. I actually have to deal with it. So bye bye, control alt delete. Like, I couldn't. There was this. Mm,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure you can relate to that.
I can. I can. I'm thinking of multiple ways. So at the age of 5, you accepted Jesus, and fortunately, that makes it so that you actually knew the real Jesus.
Yeah.
Did your feel free to say no to answering this or not, but did your abuse include having any um, non-Jesus uh, content, like where somebody posed as Jesus or
Oh yeah, yeah,
um,
absolutely. Absolutely, which is what that part was telling me earlier today when I said, "Hey, how about we talk to Jesus?" And then he was telling me, "Oh, you mean David?" Edit that out. "Oh, you mean my brother?" Because there's definitely set up this dynamic where there was a sexual dynamic with that family member, and there was a power differential, and that was he was put in as Jesus. And this part has been living in the space of like, I have to obey this family member for ops because it's Jesus.
wow,
And
yeah,
that's
I
just a
actually,
little snippet of it. I'm like, I've found all sorts of parts that have been like, even other parts, like I know that there have been other parts that have been, I don't have clarity on this, but I know it's there, that there have been parts
mhm,
who have been trained to respond inside when I start praying to God, they actually pick up the phone and answer, and their parts. So
yeah,
I can start trying to pray to God, dial 1-800 Jesus, and then like have one of my altars pick up the phone and say, "Yes, I'm right here." And I'm like, "Wait, what? Your voice sounds kind of funny." Like,
wow, that's such a mind thing to have that association with,
yeah,
like a brother being
yeah.
Jesus.
Yes.
Uh,
How about for detangling the whole my sister, my bride thing from Song of Solomon? Like,
oh,
yeah.
boy, they don't leave anything untouched, do they?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and it's so it's been like this whole like marriage thing is like I can deal with God as a friend, but you start crossing that line and get out. And that's linked into this I can't get married thing because it's like that with every man. Like I can have a great rapport with a guy, with a man, but as soon as it starts to enter non-platonic land, it it's just we don't know what the hell to do. Like parts will start
Wow.
going off and being like, I gotta kill you now because you're a bad guy. Or I gotta kill me because I shouldn't have fallen in love with you because I know you're a jackass because you love me. It's like, whoa. I'm like, whoa, 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 everyone calm down. Let's try to piece this together. It's like, no.
It gets so complicated
Yes. And so heated so
internally.
fast. And I'm like, let's try to very carefully take this apart a little bit by bit. But
So
that's not fully done, but I know it's there. And it's like top
that leads
priority to
me
try to
to
work with that.
that leads me to another question. It's actually kind of an answer to prayer for somebody that's listening today. That will be. This is being recorded, but there's I connected this with my own parts. I don't know how long ago. Doesn't matter. But okay, so before I ask the question, I want to say what I'm talking about. So there can be parts that have been connected with the fake Jesus, and that abuser can be their handler
Mhm.
at the same time. And
Yep.
so then when the person, let's say you're connecting to the real Jesus, the Holy Spirit, through the Holy Spirit, and you are actually hearing from Jesus and like having a revelation and feeling peace about something that's on the up and up. And then,
Yeah.
have you ever had this happen where then all of a sudden, what I would call like the handler part comes in, and they're like, they take over for the real Holy Spirit, and then you
Oh,
start
yes.
hearing
Yes. And so
hearing
it's
from
like
that
you're talking to real
part.
Jesus, and then,
Yes.
yes.
Can
Oh
you
my
can you
gosh.
talk more about that?
I don't
Because
know if I
there's,
can, because it's still a
or
mess.
even just mentioning it, I can mention it and let the Lord do whatever with it. So, okay,
Yeah.
so what I'm talking about, and then we'll get back to Samantha's story, is the fact that because there's so much of a conflict, confusion, where parts are connected with people during abuse, and then that
Then
part
the
thinks, oh,
entities
this is
in that
Jesus.
person. Yes.
Yeah.
And then the entities that come into that person. That's the other piece of it, is like, there's me, there's my spirit, and then there's the other person that's standing in for Jesus on a human level, but then there's the spiritual entity that comes into them that is false. That's, you can see the difference between the person and then the spiritual entity through them, and you think that's the real Jesus because of the stand-in.
Yes. And the spiritual entity is not
Is
Jesus.
not Jesus, but it's
And
happy to be called that, and will
yes.
pick up the
And
phone.
mhm. And
Yes. Yes.
literally, like when a part that is, when this abuser is a handler, and the part that's meant to call and report or whatever, or actually talk on the phone, that entity is working to connect us with that programming. But it's so complicated, just like you said. But I wanted to explain that a little bit so that
Yes.
people can understand that it's not just always Jesus. It's not always like a spiritual attack, but it's
Yes, it could
all
be,
connected.
it could be one of three things: real Jesus, a fake entity, spiritual entity, or a part that was trained to be Jesus. Um, there's something else.
Yeah, there's that too.
Yeah.
The third one that you mentioned.
Yeah. And
It,
so, and that could be based, because we can have in our system, you really just have to grow in discernment with all this. There's just so
yeah.
much need for discernment. And the thing is, like, in order to get that discernment that you need to actually be able to realize, like, holy crap, this is real. Because you can have in your system, there's all your parts, and then you can have one particular part that is a composite of human you and not you, be it, technology, composite of you and technology that was inserted, composite of you and demonic entity, composite of you and non-human genetic stuff going on. And then there's that confusion of, that's just a part of you that's jacked up. So that particular part is got his own entanglement. And then there you can also have in your system, I wish I had my finger puppets. I should have got them out before
I
this.
know, I love your finger puppets.
um, then you can also have in your system, so if this is like actual me, you can also have in your system another of your parts that's actual you, but that you designed to look like one of your abusers as a stand-in. And then you can have, here, I need a third finger.
There you go.
You can have an actual chunk of somebody else's soul in you. So I've had to evict from myself demons. I've had to evict from myself uh, technology, like implants and weird crap like that. I've had to evict non-human DNA, like that I got from having sex with whatever the werewolf thingy that thing was. And it makes a difference how you pray. Because if you call it all demons, it doesn't necessarily do the trick. Once you finally realize, oh, this is a technological device, and you pray about that, then it can go. It won't go if you don't pray for the right thing. But if you once you evict, call the werewolf or lichen DNA for what it is, then you can evict it. And then I've also had to evict from me other people. I've had my brothers split up, my other family members are split up into their dissociated parts, right? So if this hand represents all of my family members, a sibling, and then they have their parts, and then the cult decides we want Pinky sibling to go live inside Samara in her system. I've had to evict other people from me. So I can have a sibling that's my creation to reflect the external world, and I can have the actual abuser internally. Does that make sense?
Would
So
that be considered like a soul tie?
it's different from a soul tie. You have to
It's different.
actually send them home. You have to actually send them home, because a soul tie is just that longing bond thing. But these are beyond soul ties. This is get out
Where
of my
did you
get.
learn like deliverance prayers? I know you've done Bride Ministries, Elijah House.
Yes.
Um,
I've had
there's
to
a
over the years. I've had to has kind of like been swinging me around like through the like Tarzan, like, oh, one vine to another. Like, this ministry has this tool, and this place over here has these other tools, and I've got to kind of like put them together because they're completely different tools. Um, so Elijah House Ministry gave me some really good basic foundational um Christian hygiene, like true follower of Jesus hygiene, that tools that we need. Then I spent another chunk of time with Discovering Mercy, which is where I met you, um,
yes.
where I learned a whole lot of like um, processing emotions and learning more about how to take care of myself inside, and a lot of like basic DID self care on the emotions level, and having those tools to emotionally process trauma. And then I've recently connected with another ministry, Bride Ministries, and they do really in depth spiritual warfare deliverance stuff. And so they're going through this stuff with them. I'm like, oh my gosh, here's the language for these things that I've been finding inside, but I didn't know what the language it was, because I go inside, I start praying and try to work with stuff. And I'm the kind of person where I'm like, hey, look, there's nobody here to help me but Holy Spirit. I'm going to be taught of the Lord everything I can get from him. So for the lack of anything else, you teach me. So I'll stick with it and keep praying for something until I get a sense of like, okay, you know what? I think this is like I'll see black goo inside sometimes, which is apparently a real technological thing.
It is.
But yeah, it's a real technological thing that's like blow your mind, sounds like conspiracy theory. But I'm like, oh, now that I know what it is, I can pray against it and I can see it go away. So again, it's like if you have one of the things that have kind of kept me going in my process has been if you have a broken bone, and you put like if your arm is broken and you put some acne cream on your face, is your arm going to get healed? No. But if you have a broken bone and you call it a broken bone and then reset the bone, treat it like a broken bone, and then it heals, did you have a broken bone? That's kind of what I've been like. I guess I may have a broken bone. Let's see if this works. Oh, that solved the problem. I guess I really did have a broken bone. I guess I really did have that going on. And so I've been seeing these different things and trying to work through stuff, but didn't quite have the language for it. And then realizing, oh, holy crap, this is real and mind blown. Um, but very, very powerful tools. Like they get into really weird stuff. Like I've been watching some of these testimonies of other people who have been gone through their ministry for a long, long time, or at least way more than me. And some of their stuff is like really resonating in such a way that's like, I would never have thought this would be an issue, but like, holy crap, breathe into a paper bag. It's that next layer of like, holy crap, this is real, paradigm shift. Yeah, yeah, I mean, like when you first realize you're dissociated, it's like, when you first realize, wait, I was abused, it's,
Right.
yeah. So, but you have all that internal um witness that says, yeah, yeah, this is where we need to park. um
Have
so
you
I'm
found that the Lord, when you like what you're talking about, like reminds me of something, and I'm going to try to formulate my question because it wasn't anything planned. But like, have you found in your experience that the Lord, when you are ready and when you are working with, seeking his wisdom for your healing and recovery, that the Lord provides something that's on a different level than for what you are dealing with? Do you know
absolutely,
what I mean?
yes. And I absolutely believe 1,000,000% that God he has had his hand on my process all the way through. I've heard I've met other survivors who haven't had that same connection with the Lord, and their process has been so much rougher.
Mm.
And it's oftentimes I hear stories of people getting re-abused because they don't have the Lord's hand or the connection with him in enough of a way that they can not go down certain healing roads that end up landing them back in the same place. Like
Yeah.
I've been able to completely avoid um any sort of psych eval. Like never mind not being hospital, like in an institution. Like people with these kinds of stories that end up in institutions, and by the grace of God, I've been able to stay out of that. And I've actually
Wow.
been able to stay, like he's been so good to say, don't get help there, come over here. Or you're like, how you need to vomit, and he's like, you're just like run into the bathroom, and he's like, don't go that way, go this way. And I'm like holding it to go a certain direction, like I know, like I can't go over there. and
Yeah,
and I and I've seen other people taking that path, and they end up in a heap of trouble. And my heart so goes out to them. And
mine too.
you know I mean, I've definitely had my share of trust issues with hearing God's voice and whatnot. And but at the same time, like I know his hand has been on me. And if there's anything I could pray for or want for anyone and everyone, every survivor listening to this, is that God, that you would put your hand on their lives and protect them from further stuff and connect them to the right things, that you would shut the doors that need to be shut and open the doors that need to be open. And yeah, like I know I have parts that like think, oh, I've been doing this all by myself, working all alone. It's like, no, Like I
Oh,
got his, eh, I have to give it all to him because I mean, I have felt very alone, you
I'm
know,
sure.
because no one ministry, no one set of friends, or no one's influence of support has lasted for very long, and I've had to move on. And that's felt like all sorts of confusing things. That, oh, you just don't want to be committed in relationship, and you give up too easy. It's all about you and what you need, and you don't care about it's all that stuff goes on in my head.
Mm.
But the reality is like I just have to keep, I get it feels like I'm using people. I'm not, because that's not my heart to harm anybody. But
No, I've never
that,
seen that in you, like, as long as I've known you, for the 5, almost 6 years that we've known each other. Um, you bring up a good point about, like, how God can open doors, and,
yes,
I've seen that in your life. I've heard about it, and the viewers are hearing about it now, how the Lord has been with you every step of the way,
yeah,
and it's like you're actually the first survivor that I know that has not had to go in treatment, and that's a miracle in itself that you share that. And I don't say that lightly because it is a very real thing. And unfortunately, too many survivors end up there. They get reprogrammed, as
yeah.
other survivors have shared. But how can you uh, share how? I know you accepted Jesus at the age of 5, but how did you get to a point with even the little that you shared with us today about, how the Jesus was twisted? How did you get where you could trust God this well? I mean, I know you've had to rely on him, but how did you get to the point where you could trust him like this after what your experience was?
I think the way things rolled out in how my system was developed was presenter developed the strongest um, connection to the Lord, separate from all the traumas. And so presenter was like, oh yeah, I love God, I'm a Christian, I'm going to try to do everything. Presenter was the one who wanted to do missions and all this stuff, but had this like, there's some stuff back there that needs to be dealt with before you go start being a servant in the Lord's army. Before I start going out on the mission field, before I start my ministry or whatever even that looks like, there's personal stuff I need to deal with to make sure that I'm prepared and that I have a good foundation. So presenter um, went to this might something to know about my system. Like I actually fragmented a lot. I'm very, very fragmented, and they put in my system a shell programming. So basically, it's sort of like an exterior part that is always present outside of black nighttime operations. And I could have tons of parts come forward, and the experience is something like um, prison cells all next to each other, and they're all looking out at the same view, the same hallway. And so they can all get the same information if they come up front. So they can all,
Okay.
any part can come up front and tap into a collective knowledge. So it's like there's an exterior part that holds on to all this stuff. So that way, when I switch, it's behind that wall, and that whatever part can tap in and be realizing, like, okay, I know Sherry. And so I know that I need to kind of interact with her in this sort of a way because that's the kind of relationship that I have with her, even though the part that's forward doesn't have anything to do with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can have a whole bunch of parts come up and like tap into this understanding of how I'm dealing with the regular outside world. And it blends in what we look like to other people, but also really smooths out the transitions. So there's no experience, very, very little experience of lost time. And so I had a strong presenter part that would work daily life with Shell, and a bunch of other parts that would come up all the time. And so daily life presenter says, okay, I love Jesus. I'll hold all this information. And oh, look, there's another part here. And we'll work together with Shell so that way we could all come to an understanding of let's all get on the same page kind of a thing.
Does that mean
Um,
that the parts that come forward then they know at that time what presenter part knows?
not
Is that
necessarily what
correct?
I present or know, but what Shell knows.
What shell
Because
part knows? Okay.
Shell knows more than anybody else. Shell kind of collects everybody's stuff together. And so
That explains it better.
anyone can tap into what Shell knows.
How did you discover that you had this type of a system?
That actually was
God.
yeah, right. That's probably it because um but that I actually figured that out really quickly. Like within the first month of realizing I was dissociated. Like Shell and primary presenter were the first two parts that I recognized, even though they work so well together all the time. It was hard to kind of distinguish. But then I realized that these other parts could come up and they would still interact with other people out here that but you have a different I started to realize you have a different feeling about this other person. So it was like even though this other part would come forward that doesn't give a shit about Christianity, because of Shell, that part could work with Shell to kind of make it look like, yeah, I'm just having a rough day or I'm struggling with such and such in my walk with God or something.
Okay.
So learning how my system worked played an integral role in me um, helping to deal with parts. And also very quickly I learned, and again, this was Holy Spirit. He must have just downloaded this into me. I just had this instinct of realizing I need to go find the deepest, darkest, most vulnerable, most terrified, most hurt parts inside. Those are the parts I need to find. And that's what I
That
started
makes
doing.
sense. They're in the most
It's just
pain.
that's what I needed to do. Like I'm broken because everything hurts. Let's deal with the hurt. So let's go find the parts that are hurt. And so it's like, oh, wait, so I can't access the hurt. So what's going on here? Oh, there's a guard there. And I need to talk to the guard first and say, hey, look, I'm not here to hurt her. I would like to blah, blah, blah. And build rapport with the guard in front of the hurt part or whatever. And it just got more and more complex as I have been doing all this. And then realizing, oh, not everybody wants me talking about Jesus all the time. Oh, this feels weird. How do I deal with this? Okay.
How
And
did
so
you deal with that?
it depended on the part. It
Yeah,
depended
I'm
on the
sure
part,
that's
but
an individual thing.
yeah, mostly it was like I can go inside and if this is me presenter and then here's a new part. If I can get close enough to the part and we can make some sort of connection, that's usually enough to open the door for something, some sort of conversation. I don't always hear words back. And that's not because they're not nonverbal, it's because they literally don't have any language because their brain was fucking fried. Because they're like
Mm.
just so tortured that they just don't have words. And I have to
Yeah.
go, I have to be employ massage therapist tools and be like, well, let's just kind of palpate around here. Oh, you know, it feels like this, and help them get some language. You're like, oh, that feels relieving. Like, this is the real tense part right here. I'm just going to sit here like a trigger point. If it literally feels like massage therapy inside with my parts, I, I feel the muscle tissue, and like, here's a spot where like, what's going to help the tissue to open? Like, I need to work a little faster. I need to apply deeper pressure. I need to kind of smooth things over. I need to kind of get around it first before I can get closer. Like, it feels like palpation.
Yeah. Did you find that each of the parts that you connected with, you end up like finding the differences was like some were harder than others to connect to?
Yes, for sure. For sure. There have definitely been times where it's like I know some people, depending on their programming and what was used to program them, they'll have like the internal world is like a castle or something like that. I don't have anything like that. It's just dark until I see a part. But sometimes I'll find a dark cavern and I know there are parts in there. I can't see them, but I can feel them there, and I can kind of feel the weight of the heaviness or something. And so I'll say, hey, if anyone can hear me, here's what I have for you to say. Here's what I would like you to know. And sometimes I'll like put out ropes and say, I know you're scared, but I know you want to get out, but you feel like you can't, I'm going to throw a rope down to you, and you can just grab onto the rope, and I can pull you up if you want, or you can just hold on the rope like a security blanket or whatever. And just making that contact through the rope in again, internal work, I can feel the peace increase. Or sometimes it's like they're terrified of the light. And so I'll throw like a little tiny glow stick and be like, it's just a little light. And I'll throw it down there so you don't have to come out and be like, oh, sunshine, Tucson sun. It's like, so bright, but help you get used to the light. And I can feel the peace. And there's a lot of like, I don't know what the heck you're going through, but this is what I feel you're feeling. Is that true? Um, I'm here.
It's,
Here's what I want. And now I'm in a space. I'm in a place now where I have to work with whole groups of parts rather than just individual parts. Like I have to work with whole systems, and like what I was describing earlier, I had to put two whole systems of parts together to deal with
yeah.
the bigger thing. So it's just different, and a lot of this has to do with how I was just fragmented so much. Like I tried for a while to name parts. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I got to like 80 something, 75, 80. I'm like, this is dumb. How am I even gonna know? I can't even like define enough of these well enough to know if I've come across them again. Like, and people
Yeah, when
did
you're
like,
fragmented like
yeah, it was
that.
just so fragmented that I was like, this is kind of not helpful. Initially, it was for me to kind of get used to the reality of things and to distinguish some of the major players up front. And now it's like I still can't name parts, but I can feel like a group of parts that carry an overarching feel or character of or of a role. And there may be one specific part that's like representative of everyone in that group, but it's anyway. That's a whole lot of details on my the workings of my mind that I'm sure everybody wants to know. How does your mind work,
It's
Samantha?
it's very helpful, Samantha.
Well, now
For
I know, and not just the programmers.
I know it will help other survivors too, because a lot of times when there aren't names and there's groups and the survivor's so fragmented, it's like, how do I even connect with these parts of my mind?
Yeah, yeah. So I go by general feel and like the texture, the emotional feel of the group of parts, and talk about the issue that's in common, like the way that these parts together were trained to think, rather than like try to distinguish individual parts. And then
Yeah, definitely.
I have to say, okay, this is your perspective. I need to, just so you can get free, I have to pull you out and help you to see the bigger picture of where you fit in everybody else, where everyone else goes. So that way you can be like, oh, I don't have to do this job anymore because the whole system is coming down. Because this job is actually, from this whole section of parts, is actually working to keep this alive. And like they're feeding off of each other, and have to like kind of get them together and be like, hey, look, here's what I see happening. This. Let's look at all the players here, just so everybody knows. Look around, see what all's happening. It's safe to know. It's okay if we know. It's safer for us if we know, because now they can't work us in that direction. And so I'll speak out the mind job that each segment has, saying like, they did this to you so that way you blah blah blah, and they're like, yes. And hearing me, having other sections hear that, be like, oh, so I don't have to fight that group because that's what they were doing to help everybody, and so now I don't have to do this job because we can exit together.
Yeah. It sounds like your journey has been one, maybe not always, but like doing it together with your parts, with the Lord, and having the Holy Spirit. So, looking back on your journey, like in the past, um, is there anything that you can think of that would be like something that you found was significant to deprogram or disconnect from the abuse or abusers that would be helpful to share with other survivors?
Deal with the attachment pain. I feel like dealing with the attachment pain is a major game changer for things. Um, and the primary way that my first look to deal with attachment pain is to get parts to trust each other and attach to each other. That's it. That's the first big thing that I can do. And once I can do that, then I say, let's attach to Jesus and Holy Spirit. But we can't really step out to trust him. And the next level is trusting him comes after we start trusting ourselves a little bit better. But sometimes we need to kind of include him in that process to help us like not look at each other sideways, not look at ourselves sideways. Um, but dealing with, like, there's so much damage that's done that harms our ability to connect authentically, genuinely with our hearts, with other people, particularly people that can be triggering. Like, it's initially like, it's really easy to find that trauma bonded dynamic to feel comfortable, to be drawn to the really messed up people. I've had other survivors, not just of this kind of stuff, but even just of regular garden variety abuse, for lack of a better word. People who have been seriously hurt end up being drawn towards other people who are hurt, and they're like, oh, let's be
Mhm.
friends. And then they self destruct because they're they're hurting each other because they're both broken. And here's another way that Holy Spirit really helped me, is like, help me to see like, that person out there is pretty fucked up. um I need to not get too close because it's going to suck me into a bad dynamic. And it's really hard to walk around life and being like, well, everyone's jacked up now. It's like, now I can see, whoa, everyone, who the heck can I trust? You know, but over the years, saying no to the dysfunctional dynamics, having the wherewithal in here to say no to the dysfunctional dynamics out there, helps me to say yes, to let the healing, restorative, next layer of getting out, relationships come in. And that starts having that wherewithal in you to start being able to say no to the dysfunctional relationships out there, starts with being able to trust yourself and to attach to yourself and to have Jesus as your anchor. That was a major thing for me. I don't know what to, I mean, my prayer is that people can get connected to true Jesus. Whatever that looks like, God's got you covered. But I mean, I there's no easy fix for that. Like, there's no formula for that. Rather, there's no formula for it, because God's going to connect with each person individually. He knows exactly how to come alongside with you and draw you closer and help you to. He builds trust. He doesn't demand it. That's one thing that I think would be help. Another thing that would be really helpful to know is that true Jesus builds trust, and he waits for you to choose. He doesn't demand it. The enemy can't do anything without your will, without your choice. God won't do anything without your choice. So the enemies, the bad guys, are always trying to get you, finagle you, and massage you. Because sometimes it's massage. It's not always coercion. Sometimes it's actual like love bombing. Sometimes it's actual massaging you to say yes. And that can be really hard to distinguish from how God operates. Because he builds trust in a very clean exchange of, I will take care of you with as much as you let me take care of. I will be faithful. Every amount of problem that you give to me, I will be faithful to care for that, and I'll wait for you to choose to give me the next bit. And I've had other Christians tell me, like, oh, it shouldn't take you that long to get healed from such and such. And I'm like, you don't understand free will. And you don't understand choice, because God does not override our free will. He acknowledges that we have separate wills. And he says, okay, presenter part, you've given me your free will here, but this other part hasn't. So you can do what you need to do to, like, be the go-between to help. But I want you, he's told me as presenter part, that's like going to talk to other parts that don't know God, true Jesus. You need to represent me well. Otherwise, they're going to hear the same bad story that programmers want. So I had to learn how to connect with parts, and I've shared some of that already. But true Jesus, he rescues without demanding. He's patient. And here's another thing that I do a lot, another prayer that I do a lot. When I come across a chunk of parts, there's like, oh, I can't talk about God because it's just too confusing. It's just too freaking confusing. I don't know which end is up. So I ask for Holy Spirit, because true Holy Spirit, he works behind the scenes, and he's able to bring peace without freaking anyone out. He's able to protect without freaking anyone out. He's able to say, I'll help you, but you don't have to know I'm here. If you say yes to me, if some part of you says, I'd like help, but I don't want to know you're there. That happens a lot inside. Like, Jesus, I need you. Tell me the answer. La 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 la. I don't want to try to hear you because it's too confusing, but I need to know the answer, God. La 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 la. That happens a lot for me, and so I just say, okay, Holy Spirit, can you just give them the answer? Make it think it's their idea. Help them to just, And he's been faithful to do that. He helps them to just say, like, okay, I didn't have to go through that torment of trying to figure out which voice is God, but I feel it here, and I know I need to go this way. Does that make sense?
That's
So
beautiful.
he's able to bypass all of our tripwires and triggers
Mhm. He
to
is.
to help us grow to trust him. So those are just some tools that I use.
Well, thank you, Samantha, for taking the time to be on the podcast and share your story. And just like your story, all survivor story matters. And just like your healing journey will inspire others, I'm sure. It always inspires me to every time I hear more from you. Um, Thank you for your courage to speak out, and I'm sure it will make a difference. Uh, it's been an honor to have you on here today to help share your message of hope and transformation. And would you be willing to do a part two?
Sure.
That would
Sure.
be
Hopefully I have
great.
some updates. I don't know.
I feel like we ran out of time. I had so many things I wanted to hear
Yeah,
more
it's such
about.
a big conversation. It's just such a big topic.
Would you like to close us in prayer?
Sure. Sure. Wait, hold on. Let me just check because we've
Yeah,
I've been having some trouble
check
praying lately.
inside.
So okay, I hear yeah, but be quick.
Okay.
It's been it's been a little weird lately, the past couple weeks. It's been a new layer, parts are like so
Yeah, you can do a short prayer. That'd be
yeah,
great.
just some quick. God, thank you. Um, I ask that you would be with be with all the listeners as you have been with me. Be with all the listeners as you have been with me, that you would shut doors that need to be shut, open doors that need to be open, that you would tenderly speak to each and every person, each and every part. This is the way, come this way. This is true freedom. That's a fake one. That leads back to the center of the confusion. Bring in the people that genuinely want to help and genuinely can help, both. And remove the people that are making things worse. Years back, I'm gonna kind of exit prayer for a little bit. I was went to an internship program with a prophetic ministry, and there's this one woman that prayed over me. She gave me this word, and it was like 5 minutes long. She just said over and over and over again this one word, and I want to pray this over every survivor. Strong, 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 strong. He has all the strength that you need.
Hmm.
And it's a spiritual thing, not just a willpower thing.
Thank you, God, that you can be our strength. Thank you, Samantha, for being here with us today, showing your strength, but in the way you're showing the Lord's strength through you and what He's gotten you through. So, thank you to all the viewers for watching this podcast. And if you would like to share your story, please let Cindy or I know. Um, I'm like a little emotional at the moment, but I want to thank you for being here, and I want to make sure that everyone knows that Relentless Hope is dedicated to being that resource, that support. It's a faith-based organization. So if even if you can't pray, we pray for you, and we do know and understand how difficult it is to have anything to do with God or Jesus. And it's not about religion, it's about relationship. So thank you so much. And we will see you in a future podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.